yourself. Today's topic, advanced productivity, building your second brain. So here's what we know. Here's the lay of the land and the way the world is right now. We have a device or a set of devices that are capturing the things we're learning if we're using them in this way. And that captured learnings can inform us, keep our perspective, if you will, keep us on the path of continued mastery and growth. And more than that, and this is the big takeaway for you, I hope you're feeling it, is it can be left for generations to come too. Now I'll talk a little bit about Neuralink and Elon Musk's goal of how you can take that information and with very very high bandwidth, actually move it between your brain and a device that stores it. Right now that usually happens via, like for me, with Evernote, but with Neuralink, you're able to store it in this device and have it sort of download in your brain and upload to the device and all this stuff instantaneously. It's kind of scary when you think about what that can actually mean. So really, really important here. Make sure you get your notes out. Make sure you're ready to roll. There's going to be some key distinctions and takeaways that I think you're going to really enjoy and that you'll be able to apply immediately in your life and even in your business. If you have a business, you want to go after it too, so that you can get very masterful. Simplify life. Feel better about life. Feel better about those you're with. Feel like you're being the best for you and the world. Does that all make sense? That being said, we always do. We're going to start with perspective, then we're going to go into training, then we're going to go into action. Teachable, tactical. Really making this real for you. So the very first thing I want to make sure of is that we're framing why any of this is important in the first place. And as you know, if you've been with us, those 5 Ps. So we'll touch on those, and then we're going to talk about a life anthem that I've developed. Finally, in the last 6 months, have solidified that fuels me, my behaviors. It's like 2 words that just fuel me to be the best that I can be for you, for my family, friends, everybody I meet, the world, and myself. So I hope you get some inspiration through this idea of a life anthem. Then we're going to talk about things that fuel the life anthem, and we'll also talk about things that take away from that life anthem. And then we're going to get into some real powerful ways for you to build your second brain. Or if you want to think about it this way, your personal knowledge management system. Personal knowledge management system. And I'm going to walk you through how I built mine. Didn't really realize that's what I had built until the last few months as I've been studying this idea of second brain. And it's actually a course online. I haven't taken the course, but I have done a lot of prelim work for it. It's got an enrollment process to it, and right now they're not enrolling until I think next year. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the perspective piece, the 5 Ps. First P, about anything we're doing in the world, if we really want to feel healthy, wealthy, and happy, is to feel purposeful. So I'd love to know, as you step into the idea of feeling purposeful, how have you done in the last 4 weeks? If you're following us live, our last training was 4 weeks ago, how are you doing at feeling purposeful in life? So many people report out, purpose to me is just making sure I'm hitting the notes in terms of my walks every day, reading something inspirational or reading something that's fun, being with my family, being present, caring, compassionate with those around me, and then contributing to the world somehow. These are some of the ways people have described feeling purposeful. So I'd love to know if you want to rate yourself, high performance move, 0, I haven't felt purposeful at all in the last few weeks, 10, feel incredibly purposeful. And maybe somewhere in between. And if it's below an 8, you probably know the drill. Think about one way you can change in the next week, the next day, to feel even more purposeful. So what is that for you? So as I step into my life, I've been on fire with purpose. I'm saying 10 plus, and I picture this beating plus, like a red beating plus, because I've been incredibly clear about what our initiatives are, where we're going. Word of the decade for me, and so many that are in our mastery community, is scale. So I'm really clear about what that means for me and what it means for me incorporating a lot of the beautiful trainings, messages, content, videos, podcasts that so many of our mastery community members have. And it's like to get their word and my word and work out in the world, that's insanely purposeful to me. That's the next step. That's the leveling up in that space for me. Now that's pretty ambitious, and I'm further down that path than most, at least most of the people that I'm talking with and working with. So back that down. What is it for you to feel more purposeful in the next week, the next month, or throughout the rest of 2020? Anything there for you? Good stuff, huh? Next up, passionate. What are you doing to feel and maintain feeling emotionally enthused and engaged in your life? Maybe with your work. I tell you, this passion has driven huge from this L, learning new things. So I'll give you a little hint as to what's coming. Learning new things has it's just enraged or engaged my passion. Very clear on the initiatives of what I want to learn. One of them is all about Neuralink and where this is going from an AI perspective and an artificial intelligence perspective, but also for helping people with brain disorders or brain disease. Now, I don't know if you know this, but my mom has Parkinson's. And one of the big things they find is if they have certain neurostimulators, that they can reduce tremors and reduce that sensation as Parkinson's progresses. You lose the happiness feeling, dopamine, and it's a progressive disease that way. So these Neuralink and this technology is incredibly beneficial in the short term for people that are right in my immediate circle. So I'm learning more about it, but I'm also learning about the science of what can help right now without Neuralink and neurotransmitters. These kind of things, this stuff just impassions me. So the other side of it is when I'm looking at gaming in Flight Simulator and streaming, me learning how to fly, and I've been getting great results from people like, I didn't even know that was possible, all the things that are happening in the simulation world. Finally, I think about, a little side note, 20 years ago, the big blocky chunk, you have green on the ground and blue in the sky and your airplane goes like this as you're flying. And I used to think that was a blast. And now you're flying a real plane with real buttons and real programmable, navigation. And you're learning how to literally fly an airplane. And you got a joystick and the controls that make it feel real. Like, look how far technology has evolved. So I'm very passionate about learning. That being said, I'd love to know what's fueling your passion right now. Our reward for participation, so there's a participation cue. Go ahead and share. If you're watching us in the premiere or you're watching us in the replay, some things that passion you, that you're passionate about. And maybe it's along the lines of what I'm talking about, what you're impassioned to learn, or what you're excited about for the future, or what you're excited about right now, whatever that is for you. What's giving you that sensation of higher passion? And give yourself a rating there. And I'm 10 plus on there right now. I'm in major double down mode, getting all this foundation and structure set up. And I'm learning, creating, sharing, applying, going after it. We'll talk about that in just a minute as well. Next up, positivity. How are you doing? How have you been doing the last 4 weeks with keeping a positive mindset? Keeping joy. So we talk about high performance. We have full engagement, joy, and confidence as we move through life. So what's been working for you? What hasn't? If you were to rate yourself, 0, don't have any joy. I'm negative, really in a funk, really bad funk. And 10, really owning it. Keeping hope, ambition, dreams alive and working towards them every day. That's one way of thinking about it. So I'd love to hear. I'd love to know, what is your rating here as you think this through? Anything coming up for you? I gotta tell you, when I'm purposeful and passionate, it fuels my positivity. I hope you sense the stack of the 5 Ps, right? It's like, it's fueling it. It's going after it. Got done, last night I had a massive learning session, and I got done with it, and I'm just like, what am I gonna do with all this knowledge? Sharing it with you in pieces today. Rocking it out. So I hope you're sensing it. Next up is productivity, and it's a big part of today's topic. So let's kind of set the frame here. The highest performers on the planet, the world's highest performers, they understand they have certain projects and life's ambitions and maybe a bucket list, things they want to accomplish. And that's part of their productivity, is going after those. The other side is they have a set of responsibilities, things they just have to get done, like chores. And they're handling those, and they're bringing appropriate energy, meaning that they're bringing positive, joyful energy into both of those. And I got to tell you, I didn't make the click with that until 2014, when I realized that I could time chunk. We call it, in high performance, we call it time blocking. And then before I go into a time block, say, how do I want to feel as I'm working through this time block? A big part of this beautiful book is really thinking through how you want to feel about your day and thinking through what could throw you off. Getting some dedicated time to do that in the morning. The High Performance Planner is magical for that. There's a link below to learn more about it. Then on the other side of it, how you want to feel once it's complete. And that was a game changer for me because I was like, okay, if I'm going to go through and do chores for, 15 minutes, why don't I leverage those as a way to get up and move? So if I do the garbage, if I clean up things, if I reorganize, let's do that as a 5 to 10 minute block or 15-minute block, and then move the body as I do it, then get back into my work for another 50 minutes, another 75 minutes, another 90 minutes. And that's position breaks. But inside each of those time blocks, making sure that I'm owning whatever the task or the project is I'm working on. Singular focus, deep work. I always talk about these two books that kind of help paint that picture a little deeper, especially if it's a new language for you. The One Thing by Gary Keller, and then Deep Work by Cal Newport. Those two books really paint a frame on how important it is for our psychology to focus on one thing. And Deep Work really helps us understand how when we give ourselves that space, we think deeper, more thoroughly. We typically, for me, I come up with better creativity, better creative ideas and downloads from that. Does that all make sense? So in line of today's topic, I'm going to talk about a big game changer for me in terms of really amping my life anthem, which I'm so dying so much to tell you. And I want to build up to that for you. And then making sure that I'm living into how I'm building this empowering, this legacy, personal knowledge management system, personal knowledge database, whatever you want to call it. And I want to make sure that I'm really owning this process because now, especially now in the last few weeks actually, I see that as a massive legacy. Now, shout out to Patrick and our mastery community, Wisdom for Humanity, talking about how we can take what we're learning now and make sure it's shared with 4 generations ahead of us and what we're learning from 4 generations behind us. And I'm going to go with this and say what I'm building, this personal management system, personal knowledge system, if you will, is going to be shared with dozens of generations down the road if they're blessed to be on this beautiful planet. Does that all make sense? Like there's a huge component to how this can work. Now, of course, the reason why I have my 2 lovely ladies here, Josie and Paige, is because I want to make sure I'm doing everything I possibly can to help them with the wisdom that I've collected, the knowledge I've collected. And there isn't any better way, as I've been thinking this through in the literally last week, than to let them in on a lot of my trainings, my notes, in the organized fashion that I take them. And so I'm going to be breaking that down for us as we get into this today, spending a little bit of time with productivity and the 5 Ps. That's the sort of opener for everything we're going to cover today. That all being said, would love to know in the last 4 weeks, how productive have you felt? Now, please do not bring judgment or like, oh my gosh, I've been a 0, whatever that is. If that's what it is for you, I'm not bringing any judgment to that. That just means that's where you're at. And be real with it. But as we move forward, what can we do to increase productivity? So a couple ideas for you. Today we're going to talk about sleep, and today we're going to talk about learning. Today we're going to talk about creating. Today we're going to talk about sharing. And through that, as you may remember from my previous trainings, the trifecta of happiness is where you're learning something new, creating from what you've learned, sharing what you've learned. Maybe it's just sharing with your family, your friends. Maybe you're sharing it with a person, or just yourself even. And then you're just living into that trifecta. Learn something new, create, share. A lot of people report feeling very productive doing that. A lot of other people, especially in my circles, report they're making a lot of money doing that. I'm learning new things, I'm creating content and ebooks and books and videos and podcasts with what I've learned, and I'm sharing it with the world. Some of it I'm giving away, some of it I'm charging for. Does that all make sense? So I just want to make sure we're living into some illustration for you as we think about productivity. So that again is shooting really high. Maybe for you, productivity isn't that at all. It's something completely different, and that's totally fine. So whatever it is for you, 0, not productive at all, 10 in the last 4 weeks. If it's below an 8, think about 1, 2, or 3 things you could do to level that up. Does that all make sense? Sweet. The last P is profit. Ties right into what I just shared. It works out with these 5 Ps that if you align these 4 and you have the right offers, meaning the right things for people to buy, that you can make money sharing the things you create. I used to do this when I was in my teens. I'd make, in the wood shop with Gramps, I would make wood crafts. And I'd make the space shuttle and I'd wood burn it. Actually, I have it in the other room. In the replay of this, I'll try to put a picture of it in here for you so you can see my space shuttle. And I made wooden trucks. I'll put a picture of that in here in the replay. And then I'll make sure when we think about this bigger picture of profit, that we're tying it back to these other P's. So I loved working with Wood. I loved working with Gramps. And he was like amazing. He's like, Char, let's build some things. Let's get a good stock and inventory of things. And then we're going to go to the craft show and we'll try to sell them. I'm like, really, Gramps? So $5 for this, $10 for my space shuttle. This is back in the 80s, so maybe a little higher today. And I was purposeful, felt very purposeful making things, sharing things. I was passionate about woodworking. Positive, being with Gramps really brought me lots of happiness. And I felt like I was productive because I was able to increase the quality of what I was building, and I was able to build more faster without losing that quality. Does that all make sense? Just getting proficient, building competency. Then we went there and I was able to go through, sell these crafts and get my first computer and the first tape drive with it. That ages me, right? Commodore 64. So I hope you sense how these P's tie together, even for the 15-year-old version of me. So my challenge for you, as you think about this at a meta level, the why, is to help understand what is it that I'm doing out here that feels purposeful, if you want to describe it that way, that I've kind of got some emotional connection, enthusiasm about, passion, that it brings me joy or brings people around me joy, that I feel productive doing, that could ultimately, if this matters for you, create income. And that's how the 5 P's can stack and how they can connect. Does that all make sense? Whew. So hopefully with what we've covered so far, you got some great takeaways.